What's going on, Workforce? Brian and Chris here, and today we're bringing you guys our thoughts about the healers. That's right, healers got a new role, got a new job. Sage balancing out all the healers themselves. Guys, couple notes. First things first, Yoshi P, huge shout out to the medical community. We want to echo his thanks for all those
speaking of healers.
Speaking of healers, all those putting themselves on the front lines throughout this pandemic. And so we echo the thanks and the gratitude that we have to everybody, all the people working around the clock and hard to kind of fight the pandemic, also take care of all the sick. So Yoshi P, I mean, I was really moved by his words. Also, the footage that you're going to see in these videos is, pre-release footage. It is not under final adjustments. Those have not happened, and anything can change. So just note that this is, obviously very early footage in game development. And so that's what we wanted to kind of shout out. Furthermore, all links. Chris is actually live over on Twitch. If you want to go after this video or after our other hundreds of videos that are going to be rolling out for you guys today.
Hundreds.
Yeah, route across Ginger Prime, Gaming Kinda.
Last minute, so we got out 17. I think we can dial it up by a factor of 9.
Hopefully you guys enjoy the content. Links to the videos that you're most interested are obviously in the description below. Hopefully you guys go enjoy that content as it rolls out, and we look forward to sharing this experience and hopefully help answering any questions. But guys, you can ask obviously in the comments, or if you're if it's during the normal streaming hours, you can go hang out with Chris over on Twitch and he can break it down for you, and it's going to be a really good time. So be sure to go say hi to Chris over there, guys. Also, if just as a shout out to, if you're Amazon Prime, whether you want to bless us with an Amazon Prime sub or not, be sure to be using those primes on any of the Final Fantasy XIV creators as they're live today and make it their content as well. So whether you choose us or somebody else, just a reminder, you have to always refresh it. This is a good shout out time for you guys to go and use that free prime sub. Spend that Bezos money on somebody that has putting out good stuff for you. All right, Chris. All right, healing, man.
Timestamps down below.
Timestamps, maybe. We gotta go. This is crazy. So we got a brand new healer. Do we want to start with Sage or do we want to end with Sage? I'll let you make the call.
We're ending with Sage. Let's go down the list. Let's start with White Mage. It was White Mage, Scholar, Astro, Sage. That's the job order list. I think that's the right way to talk about these.
White Mage felt good.
White Mage is super good.
It was White Mage. Honestly, White Mage. If you've been playing White Mage, go.
I got a Lily Tree. Holy is not as bright. It's now a beautiful shining flower. It is stunning.
The only question I have about Holy, and I don't yet know, and maybe I just need to go read more tooltips. We're gonna be breaking down what's all changed. So when we're filming this, it's literally right after we left the event, and so we're gonna be putting more thoughts into it. So my question might be answered right now, but it went from Holy to Holy 3, and I don't know if that was a typo in the tooltip or whatever. But I was like, "Where's Holy 2?" And so maybe there's something in there that I just haven't yet discovered, and it's probably in the in my detailed video that it's well, you already said that, Brian, so in an order of operations, these are our raw thoughts and our excitement for the expansion.
I wasn't asking questions, I just put things on bars.
I noticed that. I was like, hey, everybody's like, oh, Holy looks way better, and it's Holy. Okay, cool, where is Holy 2? It went from Holy 1 to Holy 3. So anyway, guys, we got a Holy 3, and it's fantastic. I really just White Mage, just I main White Mage. It already
felt good. It felt like we need to change healers so that they can all keep up with White Mage. That's what it felt like to me. And to do that, we're gonna have to divide and conquer. We're gonna split them into 2 groups, and they're just gonna all be striving to take on their version of White Mage. Gravity looks better, so it literally just to immediately, it's White Mage, you feel good. Great, let's go to Scholar.
I really appreciated though, when you bring up Gravity, Astrologian. I appreciate it across all the board with any evolution skill. It really felt visually the skills were much better animated. I was that's great. It makes me excited to see the new Gravity.
Shouting out Black Mage in every video. I mean, I'll just say Black Mage.
Black Mage.
Oh my God.
Yeah, be sure to be ready and go check out the Black Mage video, or essentially the caster video right after this. Black Mage Summoner, Red Mage, man. We obviously love our casters here at Work to Game, but all right, so do we want to? We just said White Mage was fine, and then
White Mage is fine. Scholar.
Honestly, Scholar's sprint ability, holy freaking crap, that's impressive. Well,
I like
it gets. I mean, you could run for days. 20-second sprint, 10% damage mitigation. So even if you don't need sprint, I'm gonna wonder if there's gonna be any kind of mechanic like E9S where you don't want to sprint, and then Scholar be oh sucks to be y'all.
Don't Meg. they're on the balance beam and you pop sprint.
Mm-hmm.
And just sail off. So like there are times that it seems a little trolly, like a good rescue.
Yeah.
But overall, I think it's going to be really helpful in managing uptime. I think when I think about like the amount of dodge mechanics, when you talk about something like E12S Lions, and kind of managing uptime, getting where you need to be, it has a mitigation component, even if you're standing still. So much like the gap closers on tanks having potency, it still has a value even when you're not using it as its primary task.
Mm-hmm.
So I think Scholar feels really good. Of the set, it feels the most underwhelming still. The job action trailer, it was like, Scholar will also be an Endwalker. And then there's Sage. Well, like Scholar, there is more to what we're talking about, what changed. There is more to it. But there's still like 2 fairies that just seem cosmetic. Like there's still questions that I have. It didn't feel like a bad job before. It just felt like, man, there's some really good opportunities for refinement. Summoner Scholar as a pair, Summoner's getting a complete rework, and Scholar is remaining in the game. Like it didn't feel like it got as much of a change, especially compared to its other half, Summoner. It still just felt, but like for Scholar mains, it does feel better. It is an improvement. It's just hard when you see it compared to Astro getting a rework and Sage coming out of thin air.
So I definitely agree. I do like Scholar, and what's going to be really telling though, because when it came down to it, Shadowbringers was like, why am I not a white mage? So I think overall, I'm really hoping that Scholar, because Scholar has some great, toolkit options. The sprint he had alone, because it wasn't really highlighted in the job action trailer. So we all got together with a group and we used it as a group, and it's like zoom, like you were. And
I dropped out of the group so we could see the difference.
Yeah.
And I'm miles behind.
Yeah. And so it was like, yeah, this is really excellent. This is really nice. I'm with you 100% on the fairies. I do wish that there was like, a special situation where you like one fairy over the other, especially if you end up getting paired with another Scholar. Like it'd be like, oh, hey, okay, you're going to be Eos, I'm going to take Celine, and then there's some balance and the force there. But who knows? Like that's my biggest
higher
hope.
Chance to crit, higher chance to trigger regen, or so. I don't know what that thing is, but some reason.
Right. And but overall, like I when I was doing damage, like the spells felt like they hit harder. Like the audio of how the spells hit, like with Royal 4, like it felt very impactful. It felt very explosive for the Scholar, and the fact that Scholar also has a dot and Summoner has no dots, I was like, okay, that's unique. Obviously now we're seeing that, them being kind of really without being separate. But yeah, I have no complaints outside the fairy. Like if they were saying like, okay, this fairy, Embrace has a little regen effect that it will apply, so it'll do a little, it's Embrace, and there's just a residual regen versus it does Embrace and there's a residual shield. Like honestly, that's the minor adjustment that I would have, because Scholar does have a little bit of regen. It does have the shielding ability, the barrier ability that it's pairing with Sage on, and so that's just where I would say, that's the difference I'd like. That's the difference.
I kind of wish we had a base fairy out, and then we had both fairies, and you could trigger your fairy to like evolve into either fairy from time to time. I don't know how that works from a lore perspective, but like Eos and Celine, I wish they were these limited time windows, so I could better use those. So it was like, hey, here's one more cooldown.
As the Scholar here, it's like then that is Seraph, so you have that. You actually do have that mechanic as that fairy.
An additional.
Okay.
More. So having played Bard, I have these 3 different songs, right? Mm-hmm. And they do different things. And so I would like 2 additional Seraphs that all do something a little different.
Okay. I can like as a part of a rotational.
As like part of a rotational.
Yeah, gotcha. You want to talk Astro? Astro time?
I liked Astro, and I think this might be the only spot in every job we played where you and I disagree.
So let me talk about the pros of Astro, because I'm not here to dunk.
I play with this.
Yeah.
That's your only complaint, right? It's not the job itself. It's how you play.
So the first things first, obviously like the card mechanic with 6% and 3% is still there. So note that if you want to pop that on the right individual. However, the seals build up and they impact you. Everybody else with divination gets the boost.
Full divination.
I think I talked with Cole about this. We did a kind of a healer kind of discussion over on Ginger Prime, and we were talking about like with Astro, like the build up of trying to get the seals so you can time that with the burst windows within the raid. Like there's a lot going on there. This kind of removes that randomness in terms of like the burst windows within the raid. I thought that was genius. And then the seals, you're going to go and you want to redraw because it's going to benefit you as the astrologian. I go, that's fantastic. My complaint tends to be with how you draw, how you redraw, how you use your arcana, how you play, and how you play your arcana. If those keeping at home, I believe that's 5. That's 5 skill slots where, okay, draw a charged ability, so I can see how that redraws on a different timer. But then you've got like all of that, and I get it because that's the change that they made in Shadowbringers, but then going into, and so that just means, doesn't mean it's unplayable on controller. It just means I'm gonna have to put a lot of effort into making sure that I have it working as best as I can for you guys, because that's essentially where I struggled with it right out of the gate. I was like, okay, all right, well, and then they also have some new, like the new ability, obviously, that takes the seals and applies them to you. You got divination, like you have breaking out, I think, more ability. So I felt like the astrologian had a bit of ability bloat, where with scholar and with white mage and even with sage, well, a sage is also probably in that category. So maybe like from a button ability perspective, like white mage and scholar kind of go hand in hand. Sage and astrologian I felt like they had a lot of abilities, but astrologian, that was my only complaint. But the cast time though, across the board for healers, like in actually pumping out,
quick.
Oh, it's fast. It is fast. It feels good. Quick. It feels really good. Feels really good.
Feels really good. Yeah. So Astro was the last one that I leveled up in Shadowbringers.
Yeah.
The reason for that is that it always felt clumsy. It felt like I was over here playing Yu-Gi-Oh! And you guys were asking me to do my job, and I was like, hold on, I got to draw the right thing. And if I do this wrong, it penalizes you guys, because I want that buff to be as big as it is. I want to be putting cards and arcana and things out there in a way that benefits my allies, and that's something I'm now doing in addition to healing. Separating out the divination, separating out my big AoE thing to just be a flat 6% all the time feels like, now, yes, I'm still playing my card minigame by myself, but the only person that pays the penalty is me. And the better I play it, the more of those 3 tiers, which I think the first one was MP regen, which is great. And then the second one, I want to say the 3 were like the amount of healing I did, the amount of MP, and then something else. So there were these 3 tiers, and ideally you're getting all 3. But if you screw it up, it only affects you, and you're the one that's going to notice it. And so this expansion in general feels like there's a lot of personal responsibility put on. If you want to see the coolest parts of your job, if you want to see it played to the max, then you need to be doing it correctly. And if you don't, then don't worry about it.
Yeah.
And so it feels like they're locking something away to reward you for playing well. Here's a complete job. It will feel even more complete if you do it correctly.
Yeah.
And so like it felt like Astro now is no longer saying, Chris, if you screw it up, everybody's going to know and you're hurting their gameplay. It's like, no. You do your job. They'll be alive. They'll be fine. You're going to have a better time if you do a better job. And so Astro feels better now. Now, I only really got to do this on a dummy targeting people because we didn't have that much time. So I did not get to go heal anybody that was really taking damage. So on all these healers, like this is all just raw thoughts. But overall, I think Astro felt like, for the fact that the changes did not feel nearly as drastic as like Summoner, it felt like it really honed it into something that I can get behind.
The question I have about the Astro is that you get 1 redraw per every draw. So and there's 3, I think,
just a mulligan.
I believe 3 seals that you want to get. If you get all 3 different seals, you get 3 different buffs applied to you. And again, we'll have that, all the detail, Ginger Prime, Gaming Kinda, like go check. It
wasn't each seal, it was buff 1,
right,
2 buffs, 3 buffs. They were in order, so you're always getting buff 1. It wasn't like, oh, this seal gives you this one, so you're getting different combinations. It's not 1.
It's you want to obviously try to get 3, and you have that redraw. So I think for me I'm wondering from a min-max perspective, is it going to be where you want to undraw, let's say, because again, you draw, you don't get the card you want, and then you redraw, oh, still not the seal, and you're going for that third one. Is it more important to go ahead and just use it and take the 2 buffs, or is it important to undraw, wait for draw to actually come off a cooldown, and then try again? And that I don't know, and obviously I think min-maxers and theory crafters are really going to get into the nitty gritty with that. But if that's the case, if that's the most important aspect, then that's a 6th ability. I got to make sure I have undraw. I've never carried for it. I'm like, I don't care. Like, I'm just wanting to sit here and try to make this efficient. And in normal content, it's never been an issue. So it's like, okay, that's the questions that I now have, because if that's the case, then I think that undraw is going to be more important to the overall playstyle of Astro. And that's going to have me rethink the whole job and how I approach it, because traditionally I've put healers and tried to kind of keep similar skills similarly. And with the 4th healer in this case, and with them all being so more drastically different between healing and pure and barrier and attack, I think that's going to have me kind of have to break that up. And that's okay. I think that's a natural evolution to kind of really hone in on what makes that job unique and how it plays on a controller.
It definitely, of the set, feels like the one that I'm going to have to set up the mouse over macros most for. Today I didn't have time to set up mouse over macros, and so I was doing every job with clicking. And Astro felt like the biggest penalty there, because I'm trying to like throw cards at people, like just get it gone. and that's an extra click. And so it did feel like a lot of target switching, especially with like the minor arcana now like a separate mechanic where I'm drawing these random minor arcanas that's either healing or damage, and like it just felt like there's a lot more going on. So I can see how controller feels like your button breaker is now Astro.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they fixed Gunbreaker for you, and they said, oh, we're moving it over here. I can understand that that's going to be some work to get it where you want it, but I think once you do, for me, it feels like it's less awkward and it's more what an Astro is. Just like kind of we said with Summoner, like, wow, the game is finally getting a Summoner as a Summoner that summons. That feels really obvious. Like an Astrologian really does feel like I'm kind of like horoscoping. It really feels like that. And I'm over here doing my little tarot card table mid combat. But if I struggle on it, like that's a personal thing.
Yeah.
So Sage, the other button breaker.
Yes.
Holy crap.
Ooh. I think if you are a healer that doesn't believe in DPS, then you're not a Sage. Like and that's actually the most impressive thing. Like there's so much that I wish I had another like 100 hours to spend with Sage, and
minimum of 3.
Yeah. But I would take as much time.
3 was the number that I was like, I think that's the longest I could stay awake that I want.
Yeah. Sage I'm really looking forward to breaking down the tooltips and kind of really walking like through the abilities with you guys. Like I'm really excited about that. But wow, I love it. Like there's so like, as I was like, hey, where's the dot? Oh, it turns out this ability enhances that ability, makes it turn into a dot. I adored that because you have so many things going on. And I think essentially it's going to really be exciting to see how people play the job once they get it down. But I wouldn't classify Sage as like start here healers.
No.
Yeah,
it felt like the sweepstakes at Jeopardy, and they were like, but wait, there's more.
Yeah.
Like it was abilities and abilities and abilities, and right when you think you got them all, you're like, okay, but it's like missing this, and then you tap this final ability, and they go, but wait, there's 3 additional abilities that these other abilities turn into. Like, it's so many, and there's lasers everywhere.
Yeah.
The 2 new jobs are absolutely advanced classes. This is the first time where I've thought that 2 classes need to start at higher level. I have understood why they've done it up to now. These have to start as higher level. You are doing yourself a disservice if your first time healing is Sage. I would start somewhere else with the intention of moving to Sage.
I adore when you think of where does the healer fit in? We long speculated, because Dancer in Final Fantasy XI was able to do like damage and put out heals. Like, oh, I'm gonna yawn because it's late. Oh my gosh, like maybe they'll have Dancer be a frontline healer, something that does heal, but it does it in a way that like oh, I'm gonna put this big dot on an enemy, and anybody who hits it's gonna heal themselves. This isn't that, but Cardia becomes very close. And you can enhance it. You can do all kinds of different things with it. And it encourages doing damage to heal. The question I'm going to have for the theory crafters out there is that with Cardion, with the tank fully alive, doing damage, like, is this going to ding them in a overheal? Watch your overheals. Yeah, I was doing damage. Like, that's what I need to be doing to be able to put these heals out.
I will tell you, the person that's going to pay the tab for a Sage finding their way is tanks are going to go down.
Mm-hmm.
We are going to lose tanks between 6.0 and 6.1. We're going to lose a lot of tanks.
Like you're talking about just like in the dungeon?
Yeah, they're going to die.
I thought you were like, people like, that's it, I'm done tanking.
No. I think tanks are going to go down.
Yeah.
Sages, PSA, save your swift cast for raise. Just trust. And summoners, be aware, you might have to raise. Red mages, be aware, you might have to raise.
Black mages, you do you.
If there is a sage in there, this is going to be trial by fire here.
Yeah.
There are going to be a lot of brand new sage healers, and it is a healer that like they're going to want to shoot their lasers, and when they shoot their lasers, it's going to put out heals.
Yeah.
And they can even change the size of those heals. But not to the degree of actually healing. And if you're saying you want to speculate, I can tell you right now, as the tank, if a Sage starts only reading their DPS abilities and only hitting those, eventually it's going to work out fine at first, and eventually I'm going to run out of cooldowns. And when I do, I'm going to die.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. That's going to be how it is. That's how it rolls. That's how the cookie crumbles.
It looked fun to play.
Oh, yeah. Man.
All I could think is, how does it look in Deep Dungeon? How does it look in PvP? How does it look soloing Fates? Like, there's all these things that open up where Sage is just going to be this breakout class that tells me, here's how you have a class that can break the mold without devastating an entire role. I think the other three healers feel very distinct. They feel like their own healers, and yet Sage feels totally at home here. And it doesn't feel like it took anything away from anybody, in my opinion.
Yeah, exactly. The at the end of the day, I think a lot of people who've been wanting something more, especially when you look at how Shadowbringers kind of really normalized what damage options you had as a healer, are going to actually end up really finding a nice home in Sage. It's got a lot of complexity, I felt, and it maybe it's just that I'm sitting here coming off of it not having spent hundreds of hours, but it's like, oh wow, this feels like it's got a lot going on. All right, this is a heal. Okay, this is a shield. Okay, this is damage. Okay, this damage when paired with this turns this ability into that. Okay, let's go. I was glad I wasn't healing the dungeon for us on Sage blind. I think that was
Joy did a great job.
Joy did a fantastic job, and
I was not easy on her.
No,
because I wanted to see what Warrior could do.
Yeah,
they let Warrior loose, and the beast needed to stretch his legs.
That it did. So I don't really have I think any more thoughts that I could share on Sage at the moment. I felt honestly, even though it had a lot of buttons, I felt like for the most part, I just put things where I thought that they might go. Just note that I think just like we were talking about with Astrologian and a lot of button bloat, like Sage and Astrologian are going to be probably the jobs that I have to spend the most time on in this expansion. That's kind of the rough take I have coming out of this one. And it was interesting how I felt coming out of the Shadowbringers media tour, and then how I felt through Shadowbringers, and it really held true. I'll be kind of curious to see if, like, looking back in 2 years, like, hey, this is how I felt about Endwalker coming out of the media tour, and like how did those evolve? Was there any more evolving thoughts that I had? Was my first impressions something that really solidified the rest of the expansion or not? Because there's so much that we still don't know, and what Yoshi P shared with us is truly great. Chris, final thoughts once you can take us out too.
I mean, I think we could talk about Sage over and over and over. The way the gauge fills, the way the gems. Yeah. There's things we didn't touch on.
I didn't think about that.
It's gonna take a long time to digest it, and a lot of it's going to be learned as we as a community play Sage. So I will say to everybody else, if you've made it this far and you're like, I'm still not going to play healer, just be very patient with Sages. There's a lot to learn here. We'll do our best to share what we can, but I thank God that on the media tour that it looks like there's a lot of healer mains, because I look forward to seeing everybody's take here so that we can go in hopefully as educated as possible to adjust very quickly to the changes in whatever the content is, because that's the piece we haven't seen here. Yep. What do the dungeons, raids, and trials end up looking like in Endwalker? But until then, we have a lot more to share going live right now. I'm going to be on Twitch a ton. We're going to be talking about this constantly from October 13th to November 19th. So come say hello, and we'll see you next time.